Hi, my name's Rich and I thought I would do a review on the Rigol Oscilloscope 16 channel logic analyzer DS1052E model. A lot of reviews on the web regarding the 1102E or the 1052E, but I don't think I have seen anything on the oscilloscope slash logic analyzer. So I'd like to go through some of the features, some of the things I found during the time I've owned it, which is about a month and a half. And if you're thinking of purchasing a oscilloscope slash logic analyzer, should you go this way? Should you go with two separate units? Hopefully I'm gonna give you some ideas of how to influence your decision. There are many of these on the market. There is the Rigol, there is Instax, there is O1. I think there are many other ones. I chose the Rigol basically because they used to make logic analyzers for HP. I think it's probably the better quality Chinese type of oscilloscope logic analyzers. Look at the O1 it had some interesting features, but the biggest problem was the logic analyzer was completely disconnected from the oscilloscope. There were two different machines in one package, but you couldn't run them together, so that was not that. Instax, I just kind of read a couple of the reviews on the web. Seemed like a good machine, but maybe slight problems with service and and here in Europe, I'm in the Czech Republic. I'm really scared of losing my oscilloscope for 3 months while it's being serviced somewhere. So kind of quality is a little bit more important. Okay, so let's look at some of the features. Okay, I thought I would go through some of these functions. The functions which are actually pertinent to the logic analyzer, I'm gonna delete or not go over any of the oscilloscope, the standard stuff. So we're going to enable the logic analyzer, LA here, and I have some data lines enabled. Here I have the pod lines. The gray obviously are not used, the green ones are used. I'm using D10 through D0, some of the upper ones are not used. I have the pod is divided into two, basically 2 byte type of sections, D0 through D7, D8, and so on. I can change the current one. The red one will move according to which one I'm using. So the highlighted one is I have the combination of I can vary the threshold. I got normal TTL, which is probably 1.4, CMOS 2 something, I don't know, ESL something negative, and then user, which is completely adjustable. So that's kind of cool. So that's this menu, and the next one is probably that you can actually change the size, which I'm not sure if that's that important. Small is good enough, and the trigger menu is probably the most important one. You can have, besides the normal modes, you have so you can have edge on any one of the data lines. You can have a pulse on any one of the data lines, smaller than, greater than, or something like that. Slope doesn't, obviously. That's only for analog, video, analog, alternate. I think it's for 2 analog channels. And pattern is obviously the one that's on the bottom here. And I have this pattern here, for example, 100, so I got 80 here, and 1 bit for the. Actually, I think it's for data. Line 9 or something like that, 8 actually, which is my enable, and I can obviously change it to whatever I need to. So for example, right now, and the two, it's kind of funny, but this red and this red have nothing in common. They just kind of, this one tells me what I'm highlighted on. So here I can have high, low, or don't care. So So that's the pattern. Actually, right now I'm on duration, which means that whatever pattern there is, as long as I am over, because I got the qualifier is greater than I'm over the time period, which is in this case 627 microseconds, I can adjust that, then it'll trigger. The other one that I can set up is the pattern, which is almost the same thing, except I have this additional thing of either a rising or a falling edge. So, and you know, I have a couple more choices besides high, low, and don't care. And I find, as I will show later, that this didn't quite work as well. Here's the setup for the LCD display. And basically, my pod for the Rigol is taking 8 channels of data and 3 channels of the control signals, and the PIC microcontroller is supplying signals to the LCD. And so there's really nothing unusual or, you know, fancy about this, but it's just something to let us look at the logic signals. Okay, so here's the setup that I showed you before with the LCD, and it's obviously just sending some information to the LCD. And here I have my blanking screen. Actually my pattern is wrong because I hooked up the probes wrong, so I'm just looking at 0, 1, so D7 is actually D0, and enable is active with no command. And if I look at it, so I'm triggering on this rising edge of the enable pulse, and the way I do it is that I have my pattern set up with, again, like I said, this should actually be a 0, 1, a hex, and I got the, when I hooked it up, I reversed all the data probes. So, and the high, it triggers as soon as the enable goes high. Now, and it's on pattern. Now the pattern has the ability of that I can also do, supposedly, rising and falling edges. So let's try to do a rising edge on enable, which should be look exactly the same as before. And what we see is it's not the case. It's kind of once in a while we have we get the edge there, but a lot of times it's just as long as the pattern is satisfied, it seems like D8, the enable, just doesn't matter. So that doesn't seem to be quite correct. And let's try the falling edge. Falling edge. And the falling edge does the same thing. So with the pattern recognition, I can do the rising edge because as soon as it's enabled, that's the rising edge. I get that. How do I get the falling edge? Well, there's kind of a workaround, and we can change to duration. And duration, we see that as far as that's concerned, we have the same pattern in there. And then the trick is we're gonna have the qualifier is gonna be that it's gonna be greater than the width of that pulse, not greater, greater than some kind of a glitch or something. And if we run that, we should be able to get the same thing, except on the falling edge. And again, the pattern is here. This is the blanking screen for the LCD, and if we expand it, we do get again, those are the little artifacts there with the pulses that actually shouldn't be there. So now we're actually getting the falling edge of that. So I was able to get around the falling rising edge in the pattern, but I don't think that should be that way. I think I would expect it that I meet all the qualifications on the lines, and then the clocking the rising edge will trigger it in.